Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello once again, welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 89th iteration of the Simulationist, and we're recording this on the 18th of May, 2014. And my name is Josh Trelevin, and across the table from me, as always,
co-host extraordinaire and cola drinker without peer, Ryan Kirkby.
Without peer, so nobody drinks cola with you?
Nobody drinks cola the way I can. I get it free at work. I can overindulge whenever I want. But I don't, because I know limitations.
So you do have a limit. Okay.
Well, I'm without peer. That doesn't mean I'm without, morals, and health guidelines. I mean, cola's, okay in decent doses. I wouldn't want to be chugging like 2 liters every 4 hours. That's a heart attack happening.
All right, so that's your daily lesson of Coca-Cola, I guess. Anyways.
It doesn't necessarily need to be Coca-Cola, but
Oh, right, you didn't say Coca-Cola. Well, anyways.
No, guess what we're not having for a sponsor anytime soon. All right.
All the other soft... Anyways, yes. So, let me see. Where should we begin?
We should probably give a quick little warning for all those...
warning.
Yeah.
Wait,
next month, there is the Free RPG Day.
Warning, free RPGs are coming your way.
And you'll miss them if you're not careful. So you go to they have a website for Free RPG Day. Just Google it or Bing it or Yahoo it.
I'll probably put a link in, but I probably don't even need to because it's just
the thing,
free RPGs.
Yeah, well, you go there and then you can look up your friendly neighborhood gaming center to see which ones are participating. And so that way you know where to go. Because not everyone participates, and wouldn't you be right at the face if you go to the one place and it's like, no, we're not participating, you get nothing for free. Now start paying. That's pretty harsh. So it's about midway through next month. So, if you're listening to this the day after we're recording, start doing some stretching exercises, just in case there's a fight. You don't want to pull a hamstring or anything like that.
So it's in the middle of June, and we're recording this in 2014, so...
Well, that's okay, because if they're listening to this like a year from now, it'll still be a month away.
Because it happens every year.
Until further notice, yes.
Oh, and I guess Happy Victoria Day, too?
It's the Victoria Day weekend, but that only really applies to people within BC. Every province celebrates like a different one, apparently.
Oh, really? It isn't? I thought, like, when I was a kid, I thought Victoria Day was for the city. Like, it's because Victoria was such a great city.
I always thought it was about, like the Queen Victoria, and then and nobody decided to tell the map people, or the calendar people that, no, we're no longer, under Victoria. We're under an Elizabeth now. So no one told them that it should be Elizabeth Day.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I'm wrong on that, because, they're calendar people. Of course they keep track of this sort of stuff.
And now I want to have an Elizabeth Day, just as long as it can be another stat, so...
Can we have it on the other end of the weekend from Victoria Day? So it could be like a royal double weekend? Because that would make people very happy about the British monarchy. It's like, well, they've kind of outlived their usefulness when it comes to governing. They are fairly self-sufficient, so I'm neutral on that. Mm-hmm. But they do give us a double weekend once a year, and I'm really in favor of that. So let's keep the monarchy.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, I was listening to CBC a couple days ago doing a rewind, CBC's Rewind. There's a plug for another show. You can download their podcast at cbc.ca/podcasts. No, that's probably wrong. Anyways.
Google it. You can find them easily enough.
CBC has a bunch of great podcasts, but they were doing a rewind show, and they mentioned that I think it was one of the royal visits early in the 50s when Queen Elizabeth was a relatively new queen. Was a young queen, and she came to Canada, and basically they shut down everywhere she went, because I guess it was the age of rail and steamers and all that still, even though they did have planes and that, but it wasn't,
That was too extravagant for the royals back then.
Yeah.
Plus, I met a nice, good rail car, where you got the good seating stuff, where you can see what's going on, nice and casual, as you go through the mountains and the plains and all that. There's a beauty about that. It's actually a vacation, not just we fly from location spot to location spot. Mm-hmm. You see the land.
Yeah, and that's what people do when they tour Europe. I've always kind of wished I'd done that. Is that
it's never too late.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, unless you're wheelchair bound, in which case you got to stick to the fairly level areas.
But yeah, trains are awesome. So they would spend a day in one town, a day in another town. So every town they would visit would be that town would have the day off. It'd be because the royals are there.
Well, you could keep your store open, but no one's going to go there. Unless I suppose you're one of those food type places, in which case everyone's going to be downtown. Yeah. If you got a deli downtown sort of thing, and the royals are going to be passing by, you keep that business open just so everyone can have a good lunch.
Yeah, and that sounds like I don't know.
That's just smart planning for any business owner.
Business. Yeah. So yeah, if you're listening out there, any members of the royal family, well, I'm sure you're coming again to Victoria sometime. So,
well, I don't know about how soon to Victoria, but I have heard Prince Charles is making it over to the other coast fairly soon. A whirlwind tour, they call it, which means there wasn't as much notice that they're coming. There's always some notice. They don't just show up just spontaneously. It's not a fairy tale,
Oh, that'd be awesome if it was there was a summon royals spell or something.
I think you can work it out, sort of thing. Yeah, you could work it like the summon spells they have in 3rd edition and all that. You just have 1 through 9, and the 9th level spell will summon an emperor or monarch, but the 1st level summons someone who's 214th in line for the throne. But they might have to be underneath some sort of protection or come with a guard, now that I think about it. Otherwise, you could just summon, and then just assassinate as they pop in. So
yeah.
Because let's face it, regicide is a long and well-detailed history on all noble families, and makes for a lot of good storytelling. At least I think it would make for good storytelling. Something about a game where everyone's trying to win at the throne, but the game is your life or your death. Do you think there'd be a market for such a series?
No, it doesn't ring a bell. I don't know.
Oh, well, I guess it's just a pipe dream then, I suppose.
Not like anybody would make podcasts, whole iterations about it.
Yeah, you're right.
Or episodes. Yeah, anyways, yeah. What else should we talk about? We should talk about what we've been up to.
Yes.
What simulations we've been running.
What have you been doing this week, Josh?
A couple of things. Okay, so I've been cutting out tons and tons of hexagons for my
I noticed
game.
You've got 3 rather tall stacks.
Yeah, and I worked it out. I can cut out about 200 an hour. So that means I have another 5 hours to go. Or no, 5 hours to go. About that. Cutting out.
But you don't have to do them all at once, right?
Well, I mean, as soon as I possibly can. So, and I have, tomorrow's a holiday, so I might just spend it working on my own thing.
Open the blinds, crack open the window, let the fresh breeze come in, and just start cutting gons out.
And my other project, I guess, lots of work. It's like not a lot of play, but work for yourself when it sort of feels like play, making your own games or coding, for example. So because also I've been updating my mods for Minecraft. I finally got around to it. But I'm going to have to basically learn sort of from scratch all over again because they changed a lot of things, and Minecraft is very different on the coding end since the last time I did a mod for it.
Well, that's good, because I need your mod that allows me to turn rotten flesh into, eventually dirt.
Yes, I have enticed you.
Well, that, and in my Minecraft, I got 11 stacks of rotten meat, just sitting in a chest, doing nothing but apparently stinking, but thank goodness there's no smell-based things going on there.
I remember I posted once, you know how Minecraft has like a suggestions forum and stuff like that. I posted a suggestion once about Minecraft should do smell, like should invest or whatever, because Minecraft, like Mojang has a lot of money, like and Notch has, you know, he earned a lot of money from it, and that sort of smell-o-vision is something that people have tried in the past, like they've tried, you know, little canisters or a little fan or whatever.
I remember Walt Disney himself tried it. He was going to do a yearly thing with Fantasia that way.
Yeah, exactly. So I suggested on the forums, well, what about, you know, why not? And why not, you know, make Minecraft the first video game with smell? I think that would be great because, you know, you get that fresh cut wood, you know,
deeper immersion in there,
and, you know, freshly dug earth. Although, yeah, zombie flesh would be kind of not so good, and cows might not smell so good either.
They smell earthy, we'll say.
But there are, you know, there's nice things like flowers to smell.
There's more flowers than ever with the latest couple updates, yes.
Yeah, so, and there's grass, yeah, there's, you cut the grass or whatever, or smash the grass and have that nice summer smell.
So in your mind, what would the end smell like? Would there be a sulfurous smell if you go into the nether?
Yes, the nether would definitely smell sulfury and very,
So if you want to recreate this at home, you simply get yourself a lot of like deviled eggs, you know, and let them go for a little bit, and then go in the nether and just put the plate, you know, next to your keyboard.
Yeah, I suppose that's all you need. Yeah, the end I think would smell kind of ozone-y, you know, like a bit of ozone there. And I modified my end to be a little bit colder, like so that it snows there too, so it'd be cold.
So do Endermen normally take damage from snow, or is that only in the rain?
No, yeah, just from the rain.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And so I've been updating mods and working on that, and I also found like somebody had. For a long time, there was kind of no real good tutorials on the modding section of the Minecraft site because you know, people had done some years ago, but then they keep on breaking. And that's the thing, like mods updates, and tutorials, they're always out of date. So I found one that has been posted about a month ago, and they're really good. And so I've been, you know, following that guy, and he's got a very good system, and I finally got. Is this too technical? Maybe, but I downloaded Eclipse, which is a Java writing program that you can use for writing Java. It's so much easier. Like now that it was a little bit, I don't know, for some reason I was scared of it, like for a long time.
It's intimidating. And
I didn't want to download it, and I was like, well, I don't really know how to use it. But now that I've started using it, it's like so much easier than Notepad for code. It just basically, it does everything for you. You barely even have to type.
I must say, I would love to see something like that for Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah.
There is a program that'll make a workshop for you, and so you can see what it'll look like, and you put your various shapes and colors in there, and on the various stages as it builds up, and then you can export that into the coding. And I would love to see something like that for the monsters, for the, you know, like various entities and civilizations and reactions. I would love to see that sort of thing. That said, I don't know how to code that up myself, and no one else seems interested enough to let it happen. So, c'est la vie.
Yeah, well, it might just be a matter of waiting, or you know, till somebody gets the great idea to do it, or to.
Well, people have suggested it before, but that requires more knowledge and coding for C++ programs than a lot of the modders care to invest into themselves, because they're too busy with their own mods and they know enough how to modify the files and change what they want, so they don't have to start from scratch every time.
Okay. Yeah. And also the other simulations that I've been running is I went to two of the board gaming, like there's a board gaming meetup in Victoria.
Yes.
And so I went to two of those. One was at QV's, which is a little cafe downtown.
I've been there. They make a very nice chocolate cake.
Yeah.
Very super rich.
A lot of people like that, like have great rave reviews for that place. So, and it was a nice atmosphere, you know, good people. I met some new friends there, and so there's a meetup. And then the other that was on Sunday, and no, Monday. because we were recording on Sunday. And then on Thursday, the same group met at the Board Game Cafe downtown.
Nice.
So I had. I should explain what games I played, shouldn't I?
Oh yes. What caught your eye down there then? This week?
Well, we played 2 games at. Let me see. There was 8 Minute Empire, which is a little. It's a board game that's played on a board that's about 1 or 12 inches long by 6 inches wide, so it's fairly small as far as game boards go.
Smaller than a backgammon board.
Smaller than backgammon or chess or anything.
I don't know. You can play some really tiny chess stuff.
That's true.
Backgammon almost requires a legitimate, has to be these dimensions sort of thing.
Well, I think I've seen travel backgammon. I don't know.
I've noticed a lot more consistency in backgammon size than I have for chessboard size. So that's why I brought it up.
Okay, all right.
But yes, 8 Minute Empire.
8 Minute Empire. So it's on the board is like a sort of a map of there's little continents or islands and oceans, and it's divided like a risk board into territories. And everybody gets colored squares, and you have to put the squares on. You all start in the middle, and you draw cards, and they tell you if you can add squares or where you can move squares. And I won't go into too much detail about the rules.
All right.
But that was fun.
Congratulations.
Yes, I had fun simulating my empire, my tiny 8-minute empire. And nice. The game took about 20 minutes, I think.
So it wasn't really an 8-minute empire. You played the long version.
I guess so, yeah. And the other game we played was Smallworld, which I hadn't had a chance to play. Although I've seen it played, in YouTube videos and other places, but I had never.
Yes, my brother got me into that on the latest GotaCon. I quite like that myself.
Oh, did you play it at GotaCon? Smallworld?
Yeah.
Okay.
Me and my 2 brothers, we all sat down and we learned about it. I don't think I played it right because I never switched races. I had the Ratman with all the extra stuff, so it was a real good combo, and I just kept destroying everyone else's stuff and then piling all my rats up and then invading from the other side for those barbarian pillaging bonuses as well as take the land bonuses.
Did you end up winning?
I technically got 3rd place out of 30.
3rd out of 3.
But that's it. It wasn't by very much, and it took me a little while to get the handle of how to use that particular combination. I think I did pretty darn good, given for a first time and not doing it right.
Yeah. Well, I sat down with 4 other people. 4 other people. Oh. 2 of them had played quite a few times before, and there was another noob with me. So me and another noob, and I think somebody who had played it 1 or 2 times. It's funny because the veterans, they're like, first turn, they're like, okay, I go into decline. Like, first turn, they're like, okay, my empire's dead, I'm picking a new one. Like, they don't even... But I guess that makes... I haven't figured out why you would do that, but there's probably a strategic reason.
Because you can collect points based... or coins based off your points as to how many you've got on the area. So by going into decline early, you can get that new race out earlier, which means you can take up more of the board. You were using the large board, I take it, then?
5 players. I think there's 3. Is there 3 kinds?
I know there was a small one that me and my brothers used when we played it, and it was a very small one. So declining wasn't quite as good an option because you were guaranteed to get wiped out fairly quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
But that is a strong tactic to decline on your first turn.
Yeah, and like speaking from a designer's or design standpoint. That would not immediately occur to me as the best way to outline the flow of a game. Like, I would prefer... I'm not saying never do it, but
it might be a perceptive thing for you.
Yeah.
I never declined my Ratman, and so in the history of this little world we had, the Ratman barbarians were always attacking from all corners of the empires, destroying and eating at everything. And that was kind of interesting from a story point perspective, but I did get 3rd place because I never declined. I probably could have wound up getting and it depends too as to what bonuses you wind up getting. And it's like, well, if I go and decline, I can get this race and class combo really well, and I really like them, so I can do better with them for longer. So if the first combinations you get don't really spark your interest, decline early. and keep cycling through until you get something you can really dig.
Yeah, makes sense. My race in Smallworld, in playing I was the Wizards. Is that a race, or I guess they're...
Yeah, for some reason they're a weird little race of their own.
With the Wizards. And they, basically I got killed almost immediately, so I pretty much had to go into decline, but not the first turn. I fought back a little bit, but yeah, the elves kept on.
Those elves are hard to defeat because they just keep retreating. You can't kill them off. Their numbers stay consistent.
Don't die, so yeah.
Unless you're fighting against warlocks. Warlocks effectively take your units over. Conversion.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a counter to everything. It's very interesting that way.
It was a fun game. I enjoyed playing it. And, I will say, I'm not really that much of a strategic gamer. I don't play to win. I play because it's imagine this wonderful world of wizards and, goblins and stuff. And I don't really...
pillaging ratmen from all corners. Well, we are the barbarians beyond the maps.
Yeah, I like
dragons here, there be rats.
I like the story of that. So
I enjoyed it too, which is why I'm completely okay with saying I came in last.
Yeah.
Although I said it was also my first time, and there's never any problem with coming in last if you've never played the game before, sort of situation.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too. Another thing that was mentioned, and I might forget about this about board games, so I might as well say it now, is that there seems to be a bias against games that people have already played, especially among people who play a lot of board games. They're well, we've played that already, or and in reality, often a board game takes a few times to actually kind of feel
get in the groove, figure out a couple of the tactics.
You're good at it. So that's I don't know which way to go on that. Should you play a board game until you're really masters at it, and is only then it's really truly fun? Or are board games generally more fun if you just sort of browse, from board game to board game and just never really...
Well, I think it depends on, browse until you find something that really catches your interest and then stick with that. First you work on your breadth, then you go for your depth when you find the one to dig into. That's how I think it should go. Because let's face it, Monopoly is not for everybody. And you shouldn't have to force a person to play several times through before they figure out, no, this is not for me. Because sometimes those games will take 6 hours to finish.
Well, I was thinking of Monopoly played sort of by the rules. There is, what is it? The rule is as soon as one person goes bankrupt, that's the end of the game, right?
I don't know. I've never played it that way. I do know the money going into free parking isn't an official rule.
Yeah, and
it is a well-accepted house rule.
Well, that's true. And these house rules, a few of them, and there might be some others that I'm not remembering right now, I think going around the board once is an official rule, but some people don't require you to go around the board once. But anyways, all of these house rules actually end up making the game last longer. So,
some degree. Other ones I've noticed though, it's because I've seen some weird house rules like involving nukes.
Nukes in Monopoly.
Yeah. You spend it basically removes cash from the system, but you spend so much money, then you've got the bomb. It's I'm bombing Boardwalk. Bam! No houses, no hotels, no one ever owns it. It's a blank square now. With an additional house rule on that, if you ever land on there the next time you're moving, instead of rolling 2 dice, you only roll 1 because you've got radiation sickness. But those aren't exactly well-accepted rules, so whatever. I think nukes work better in a risk-type situation as opposed to...
Yeah. Nukes and risk. Well, I like them flavor-wise. I don't know how good they would be mechanics-wise, but yeah. I guess I'm saying I'm a big flavor guy, which is funny... No, yeah.
I do support the house rules because it does add a nice little change of flavor to what you might be used to for games. I've played this before. It's yeah, but you don't get one free nuke token whenever you play this last time, have you? And well, I guess I'll give it a try. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, I'm in favor. But I don't like free parking because it's just I don't know. It's not that interesting to me. It's just a lottery or whatever. It's just I
find the house rule for that works better than it does nothing for you.
Okay. Yeah.
I do believe Wizards of the Coast was right in 4th edition when they said you should always be able to do something every turn. And I like that for board games. Every square you land on should do something. Whether you get the chance to buy the property, have to pay the person the property, wind up going to jail, or just, go in visiting, jail. I can understand that.
Yeah, okay.
Although I would prefer there to be something else rather than jail, and then the actual jail itself be slightly off the board, and that's just where you come back in when you get out of jail. I don't know what it would be. I'm not making up the new rule for Monopoly right off the top of my head, but I do support have the chance for something to happen every round. Every time you roll, should be something going on.
I can mostly support that, I think. I think I can, yeah. Because I think...
for Monopoly, definitely.
Well, yeah, Monopoly I can, basically. But I also feel like... I just want everybody to be more zen about games and stuff, and just say that way, because games will progress faster. Like, you'll get to your turn faster if there's just, this person rolls the dice, okay, nothing, this person, nothing, this person, nothing, okay, it's my turn again.
Yeah, but how much fun is a game where all you do is roll a die, move something, and then nothing happens?
Well, something happened. You moved or something.
So, yeah, well, that's the reason why I don't like the game Sorry as much as I like other games.
Yeah.
Is a lot of that board game is just move your token, decide which one to move, move it this amount of spaces, and then that's it. There's a chance you might land on another person's one. You say sorry as you knock them back into their starting area, but no, by and large, there's a lot of just move and then do nothing. The only times I do support like a turn where there's do nothing is when you're building up for stuff, like in backgammon, where you move your positions. It's like, okay, I really didn't do much more than move these two guys, but now I've made sure this one's secure and I go with that. If you're doing it tactically, you're still doing something.
Yeah.
Maybe this stems from me not liking those nonsense moves that just waste it, in chess. Like, I'm sitting fairly well. I'll just make this move that does absolutely nothing for me either way, and I'll just go back and forth on that. Because I do utilize the chess rule that if you do the same move back and forth 3 times, you either lose or you have to do something else the next turn. You can't just go back and forth ad infinitum.
Okay. So, if like both players or what?
It'd just be the one player. It's like, I've got a good defensive setup here, so I'm just going to move my one knight back and forth in the same pattern, because that way I don't have to move any of my guys out of position. I don't support that. That is, I think it's an official rule in the high levels of chess tournament players.
Interesting. Okay. I in some ways I like it because it's part of the mind game that you could play, and like see who breaks first. Because obviously, like if you're just doing the same move back and forth, that actually does give the other player an advantage because
to set up a counter.
Yeah, they should be able to. I think. I mean, I'm no chess expert, but they should be able to set up something pretty good if you're basically wasting turns.
You're turtling is what you're doing. I don't like it in Warsong Gulch. I don't like it in chess.
Yeah.
I don't like it in general.
Well, but in chess, your opponent should be able to come up with some strategy in that time, unless they're just a bad player. That's very true.
Depending who you're playing against. Sometimes you get a person on an off day sort of thing, and what would be a harsh match is like, 3 turns later I'm gone. Ouch.
Yeah.
I don't like it in pool either, where a person just plays safety. It's like, didn't do anything. Only touched one of my ball, the ball's there, and it just moved like 4 inches. That's it. Don't like it. Play honestly. Don't play defensively. Go out there to win.
Okay. Well, I sympathize a lot. I really like that strategy of go, face first, head forward, head down. No, charge into
head
the
down,
game.
Charge in, go for a win. Don't just go to because I'll admit this when it comes to stuff like pool. Occasionally, I will do a little smack talk to make the person go off their game.
Yeah.
If I'm not good enough to beat them normally, I'll bring them down to my level. It's a Spider-Man tactic, honestly. He jive talks, Doc Ock, and Doc Ock is attacking, crazy wildly. Oh no, broke his own machine. Spider-Man wins the day. It's a debuff. Sonic, language dependent.
Charm.
Non-magical, but effectively works the same way. Yes.
All right.
-2 to all profession pool shark checks.
But I think there's also, like, because you're talking about, intimidate through, I don't know, taunts or whatever, but I think it can be intimidating to be that sort of defensive and, like, what are you going to do now? Like, come at me. Like,
I'm going to keep playing my game because you're not playing any game. You're just, twiddling your thumbs back over there. I'm going to win by the fact that you're doing nothing, really.
Well, yeah, and I think, like, speaking of game design, again, I think good game designs generally include basically incentives to get up and take action and be that. Like, generally game designers consider turtling to be something they don't want to funnel their players into, right?
Well, it can get really aggravating. I'm recalling a situation for Magic the Gathering I saw for like a YouTube clip. Guy was basically dead in the water. His opponent was able to wipe him out like by the end of the turn, but he didn't. And he just kept knocking the guy, preventing him from doing anything because he wanted to set up for this big magic combo. Eventually, the guy flipped the table, just rattled this guy's bones, by grabbing him by the scruff of his collar and telling him to quit dicking around, and threw him down as he stormed on out. Now, maybe you say the guy wasn't having a good day. I say that his opponent was not really playing any sort of game other than I got to make this combo work and then I'll defeat you through it. I don't like that. If you can win, simple win. Don't play cat and mouse, especially when your opponent can flip the table and rattle your bones and then storm off.
Yeah, that's true. Like if you're playing a stranger, be careful with that. Let the Wookiee win, as they say.
Yeah. Yes, okay, so I'll call the guy the Wookiee in that case. Yes, I like that. The Wookiee knew he couldn't win the game, but the other guy wasn't letting him lose fairly, sort of thing. And, during a tournament, it's like, okay, no. I was like, no, I want to get this combo going first, and then I'll defeat you. It's like, no, I'll start playing another game. It's called 120 card pickup. Which ones were part of your deck?
Well, hang on though. Like, isn't there a rule? I don't know Magic, and maybe you don't know this either. And I think a lot of tournament game styles will have a forfeit rule just to keep things moving along.
But in some cases, a forfeit counts more against you than a loss.
Oh, well,
so that way you can't effectively take a dive against someone so that they can wind up going on to the next level. You wind up more sacrificing yourself in that case, so you are less likely to take the dive.
Oh, I see. Okay, there's a complication there, yes.
And I support that. I mean, it does help prevent, me and my friends, we represent 25% of the people playing the tournament. And, hey, this guy won, he's got a decent chance to go in, dive, and he winds up going all the way to the finals sort of thing. Without even needing to show how good or how talented he is for his deck. That way he keeps like some of the card combos he has hidden. No one knows what he's got when he plays in the final game. He's got the tactical advantage because the other guy had to play the games, and his friends were watching. He knows what the other guy's got. He knows how to counter. He's already pre-planned on this.
Well, if they're truly sort of professional level, I would expect them to be good enough players to be able to counter most decks, and they should be able to learn. Isn't there a rule that you have to reveal what you have in your deck? I'm pretty sure there is.
At least to one of the administrators, sort of thing. Not necessarily to the people you're playing against. It's not like everyone looks through each other's decks before playing. So in this case, the guy's got like the advantage of mysteries. Like, you don't even know what deck I've got. I haven't played a single game with it tonight.
Well, that's fun. Like, I like that idea as fun, but I thought that tournaments sort of you do look at your opponent's deck before you actually start playing.
Not time-wise efficient for a number of cases. If you got enough people and everyone's sorting through the other decks, and then you get someone calling, I'm like, oh hey, I'm missing this card. He stole it from me while he was looking through my deck. Issues happen. So it doesn't happen everywhere. I can understand both sides of that argument, honestly.
Yeah.
But there are some games which I do fully support. Is if you have the opportunity to attack or do this, you have to. Like checkers. If you have the opportunity to jump a person's enemy and all that, you have to do so. You can't choose not to, and you can't move another guy elsewhere. You have to do the jump. That's a rule.
Yeah.
It prevents some interesting turtling maneuvers going on that way too.
And I see why it's necessary, and I agree with it in principle. But I also I kind of desire for games to be a little less it's a rule just because, just.
It keeps the game going forward. It prevents people from just doing nothing. I mean, there is a reason why in World of Warcraft they had to change seriously at how Warsong Gulch operated, because everyone would just wind up turtling, and then nobody could win, and then they just wait for everyone to quit out of frustration, win the game.
Yeah, but Warsong Gulch, they actually, and this is what I support, is they actually have to change the mechanics of the encounter to incentivize the players to go out there and
do something.
Yeah, rather than just saying, okay,
We'll all sit here next to the flag. Everyone step on top of it. Make sure no one can actually click on it without clicking on us instead. And we'll just blow the heck out of anyone who comes on into this room that isn't part of the Alliance or the Horde.
Yeah, that's the turtling. And then, the bad solution to that, well, not necessarily bad, but the solution I kind of don't like for various reasons would be imagine if Blizzard was okay, we're just going to teleport random players to the center of the field just randomly, every 30 seconds a different player.
Or maybe we'll start off once a minute, then it increases in frequency, the less deaths occur, until eventually everyone every 5 seconds is popping in there.
Yeah.
Basically, them saying, just do something.
Yeah, and that's that's what I don't like. That's what I'm saying, comparing to the checkers of you absolutely have to take that jump if you're you're forced to it, because then you're not really making choices at that
I wouldn't
point, right?
mind there being a neutral third force that prevents a person from staying within their flag room, sort of thing. We'll say gnolls wind up attacking if you stay in there too long, and the longer you stay in there, the more powerful the gnolls get. But they only attack your side, so the Horde guy can come on up, steal the flag, and won't have to worry about them. He won't ever aggro them, so you don't wind up having oh yeah, now we're turtling and we got super gnolls on our side too.
Okay. No, I
could see something like that to help prevent people just get out there and do something, go steal a flag or something. That's kind of the purpose of this little mini game here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was against you when you first said it, when you first said have a zone that you can't go in, but then you changed it to adding gnolls.
It prevents you from wanting to stay. It discourages you from
like
doing
that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing. Ideally, I mean, all of
done
these concepts,
right, it could be very well done. It helps propel it forward to a conclusion. Because, let's face it, a game is fun, but it has to be a conclusion. And that's why a lot of the stuff like WoW and EverQuest starts seeing fatigue after such a time. There doesn't seem to be a conclusion. There's only the end of a chapter, and then, there's going to be another one later. And people get burned out.
Yeah.
And that's why they had to put the 30-minute match limit on Warsong Gulch. People were getting burned out. I remember hearing stories about the Alterac Valley there, where a match would last 8 hours. And that they did have to have stuff where you'd be killing NPCs and you'd be bringing their flesh back to give to this one person, and they get enough flesh, and all of a sudden they summon the Winter Lord, and the Winter Lord starts smacking the heck out of everyone in a certain area. And yeah, I can understand why they change things up to help promote things to go on and do other stuff. And okay, maybe it's not the same. Maybe it's all just a rush towards get to the end guy and beat all the little mini bosses along the way as fast as you can before the other team does. So it's less player versus player and more like a race to a finish line. But I still think there's a good room for that. I think that's a valid mini game option. I would like to see it instituted as a professional, one, not just incidentally. Oh yeah, we don't really attack the other side. We just kill all the NPCs until we're done. Hopefully we did it before them. So yeah, any good game design will help propel towards a conclusion and have something to do along the way. Otherwise, it's basically like a boring trip through Saskatchewan. There's no scenery, nothing. Oh, now we're there. Finally.
Like Desert Bus. That's a game.
Yes, actually Desert Bus is a very wonderful description of the game that doesn't have the good design. On purpose, mind you.
Yeah.
But bad flow of the game, and not much to do as things are happening. So yeah, long story short, your game must have a conclusion. Somehow, somewhere, even if you only decide the conclusion conditions for yourself, as is the case with a lot of sandbox games. when am I done with this map on Minecraft? When you've built a city, that reaches to the heavens, or whatever you want. When I finally learn how to make this happen. There you go.
Well, that was what was that? That was my turn of what we've been doing this week, and that turned into a little mini discussion. So have we done your week?
No, we haven't talked about me this week. Not too much to talk about this week. I've taken a break from my Facebook games. I'm just doing maintenance on the one game, but I'm just relaxing and just de-stressing from the whole thing, because we just got over like a special ops with time limits here, and then there's also a fighting thing, you got to do this so many times a day there, and I'm just relaxing. I'm clicking for the free stuff. I'm putting my guys through so I can get more of the in-game cash, and other than that, just relaxing. And I find that very nice, just because it's an option. I'm not technically losing out on the game. I'm not getting behind. I'm just relaxing on it, so that it doesn't feel like I'm going home to my second job on the computer. Because I never want that for a feeling for a game either.
Right.
It has to feel like something you want to do, not like, do I have to? Which, again, is usually how it winds up being towards the end of like a game of Monopoly. It's like, can I just let this game end? And the other guy goes, no. Someone has to go bankrupt first. But we've all got $10,000 apiece. We're all got our properties sorted out. No one's got a monopoly on anything. Can't we go? No. It's no longer fun, but we can't stop because we're not done the game. So I wanted to make certain I wasn't feeling that burnt out on a game I do enjoy playing, especially the storylines when they come up. There's some interesting things going on with some new enemies I want to hear more about. But I don't want to have to slog through it. I want to, hey, let's learn more, and I'll go do this map, and I'll go fight things there, and I'll do this and that, and I want it to be a good, positive thing, so I took the time off so I don't burn out. And I'm happy on that.
Okay, yeah.
Otherwise, in Minecraft, I've hit a snag.
Oh.
I was building a city, and I was working out some stuff, and then I found out, one, I can't stack cities one on top of another without doing some really weird, complicated stuff. So there goes my plan for like a 7-layer cake city.
The Tower of Babel.
But I can create something like that. It'll only ever qualify as one city. But as it turns out, there's a glitch or a problem in the game mechanics. I'm not certain which it qualifies as. I don't have the inside mind of the people working there.
Right.
But if a city has more than 9 vertical levels, there is a quirk within there where the peasants may wind up breeding out of any sort of regulation limit based on the amount of doors there are. And I'm already a little frustrated with going downtown in my little city because it's really, really loud, and I'm starting to really hate the humming and the sound of closing doors. So I don't know if I want that multiplied in much more than I was going to plan on anyway. So I don't know if I should stop my city at 2 levels, or if I should continue on and then just find some sort of bizarre, out-of-the-way peasant killer to keep their populations in check.
Okay. I
don't want to kill the peasants in this case. I just don't want an infinite amount of them wandering around, overflowing like some sort of bad sci-fi episode, where every so many hours their numbers double and it continues on without limit. I don't want that.
Yeah, well, and also it will eventually break your computer.
Yes, that is another problem I have. I am finding some interesting stuff with the amount of people I have. Apparently, did you know what happens when you put an iron golem in water?
They just sit there. They can't move.
They just stand there doing nothing, chilling out. So I've got a little bay, and I was going to put a boat in the water, but now I've got like 9 iron golems just standing around there. And honestly, it looks like they're having a nice, really relaxing time themselves, so I don't really want to take them out and put them back into circulation. And that they're blocking up so much area of the water. I may have to find a way to start moving them out just to keep them from overpopulating my bay's water district. Keep the marina clear. I am thinking of starting up a nice little trap I can wind up pushing golems into, because I have found if a peasant falls off of something and dies, and I was the one who pushed them, because I was trying to get from A to B, the golems don't attack me, so that does not register as attacking a villager.
Okay.
So, by the same stretch, I will not have my reputation in the village or in the city degraded by pushing a golem into an area where they'll wind up dying from something like, say, a lava. So I may wind up starting a small, just off on the one side corner of my town, a nice little iron farm. It will be for a good purpose. It will allow me to build, a railroad to get to a neighboring town. So they're dying for a more noble cause. But here's the big problem I've got with Minecraft this week.
Okay.
I figured out a really nice compact way to keep chickens from wandering around too much, and with the use of a hopper, have all their eggs get funneled into a chest.
Okay.
Is I basically just put like a wall up above the hopper, too high for chickens to get out of, and then I throw eggs down there until I get enough chickens. And then I'm done. So I got like a bunch of chickens in a cage, they lay eggs, eggs go into the hopper puts them into the chest, and I get eggs out of the chest whenever I feel like it.
There you go. Yeah.
On the other hand, that seems a little cruel. I'm not sure if I want to do that.
Yeah.
Which is odd, because I've been talking within the last 10 minutes alone of I got to dispose of so many peasants, I'm going to kill the golems. What does it say about me when I think higher of the chickens than I do of the people in the city I am actively creating?
It tells me maybe you need a vacation. Like, go to some place far away from villagers for a while.
I did go on a little tour, check out what was going on in some of the neighboring towns. There was according to the lookout program they've got, there was like a fortress nearby, and there's supposed to be a town right above that. And I journeyed over there, but I couldn't find the town. There was no actual town at that location, so I was kind of bummed out.
Oh.
I'll have to ship some peasants in from a nearby town. But I went around to a few towns. Still haven't found a single town that's designed well enough so that the peasants can get into their houses and not kill each other as they're trying to fight over the prime location spot. Because I went to a place and there's like everyone's trying to get onto that one spot that's like at the epicenter of all the doors. Find the average location of it. Mm-hmm. It happened to be on a very high end of a sort of almost a cliff face, and so they were pushing each other off, and I'm like, do I have to separate you guys out? Do I have to build like a nice little railing to keep you guys from killing each other while I'm wandering through the zone?
You probably should.
I did. I took an extra couple days out of my time and did that, and just to make sure that made a nice little walk area down for them, put a nice little side wall so they don't push each other off, and it looks rather nice there, if I do say so myself. Mm-hmm. But I still haven't found a single town that's designed to be functional and non-lethal. So maybe that's why I don't put a lot of emphasis into why I care about my villagers. They are so much more well protected under my auspice as it is. I don't have to worry about them accidentally killing themselves off to localized extinction. And so, maybe I see it as I am the lesser of two evils. I don't want to see myself that way, but apparently I am. So, yeah, weird little thing about that this week.
Yeah.
That said, I may have to do something with my chickens. Right now I've been feeding them all the extra seeds I've got, and I've got still several dozen stacks of seeds, and there's a lot of chickens producing a lot of eggs. I have no use for this amount of eggs. I have no use for this amount of chickens. I've slaughtered enough. I have enough feathers to make all the arrows I'm going to need for a very long time. But I can't stop myself from farming for some reason, and I don't know why. Oh well. The weird situation that is me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been my week, is figuring out I love chickens more than I love villagers. Or at least I respect them enough not to try and herd them into a single location. Because if I could find a villager or two with some of the stuff I wouldn't mind trading, I got a lot of spare wool. And if I could find just one villager willing to trade wool, I will brick him up so he can't move away so I can find him again. Because I've got a lot of villagers. A lot. of villagers. Hundreds of villagers. Not by any hyperbole at all. I have hundreds of villagers in my city.
Yeah.
I've got golems by the dozens.
Sweet.
The 9 I've got in my bay don't even dent the security of the golems going elsewhere. It's busy in there. So, I don't know, maybe it's a scarcity thing, because back when I only had 2 villagers, I protected them like they were made out of gold, or diamonds or something. Yeah. So, I don't know. I do find myself learning a lot more about who I am.
Sure.
How I'm treating these digital things. So that was my interesting learning bit this weekend. I care more for chickens.
Yeah, well, and that's more than I can say for a lot of Minecraft players. And
you only see a lot of villagers as only a way to generate golems for a golem farm.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh well. Oh, I don't suppose I'm that much better. I'm already thinking about a nice golem farm myself. Just a nice little area off in off the side of town. I'll just because I can push golems, so I'll wind up pushing him in, and he'll fall down, and then he'll get hurt by the lava. And water flow takes the stuff to a secure location. They do generate back, right? Golems do come back after a certain length of time, based on the population of the villagers.
Yeah, they're simply a spawn mechanic, and there's a ticker. I think the village is sort of tracked in the game, and it has a ticker with it. And I think it's a random chance every 20,000 ticks or whatever to spawn a golem if the conditions are right, and that is if there's enough villagers, enough doors, and less golems. So.
Oh yeah, speaking of doors, is there anything you've heard coming down the line about larger doors than like a 2x1 or those little gates?
I've never heard anything like that. I mean, people use pistons to do like 2x2 doors and whatever, but
not quite what I'm looking for. Because one thing I really do like in Minecraft is the ability to set up like a nice tripwire stuff going here and there. But the doors aren't what I want, because I've got a nice little 3x2 area in 3 sections of my all 4 quarters of my town that I have to have blocked up with dirt right now just to prevent zombies from wandering in every night.
Oh, yeah.
And I would like something a little bit larger. Over into our fortress, you can work up drawbridges, both reclining, so that it goes up like a traditional drawbridge, or just retracting, so they effectively go away. And so I wouldn't mind something like a door that, hit a lever and it opens. Some nice big, grandiose door sort of thing. That would be kind of awesome.
How much have you actually done with pistons and redstone and stuff like that?
Almost nothing, because I don't usually dig down far enough to do much with redstone. Although I do appreciate what I've been doing in a creative mode for testing some stuff out.
Because that's sort of what I would suggest, is just try some redstone designs. You might like something. I don't know.
Oh, I'm just wondering, because, I mean, I would like something larger than just a generalized door, because just something that I could open up, when I come on into town, so I come marching in with my horse, as opposed to, now how do I get in here, because I can't work this, it's very small and narrow.
Yeah.
And the golems are a fairly big creature, too. I would like to be able, on my golem farm, if hey, this is kind of dangerous over here, I'll put some doors up to make sure my, villagers don't accidentally wander in, because if I'm not killing them for some sort of purpose, I don't want them to die randomly. I mean, I set up a very nice calm village / city, metropolis actually about at this point.
Yeah, it makes maybe. I mean, that would be a cool idea if they just had a 2x2 door or a 3x2 door. The size of a nether portal, something like that. Rather than necessarily having to use pistons. Although, pistons are fun.
Pistons do have a nice little sense of style from what I've seen on them.
Yeah.
But I would like a larger door, because people make, nice big rooms, and they make large areas, and it would be nice to have something more than just these 1x2 door areas, and,
Yeah, that's true. Also, I suspect possibly with the new slime blocks, you might be able to get away with doing a fairly large door with just one piston. Not sure exactly if that would work, and it would be a gross green door, but
well, maybe I'll just have to go out and get myself some vines just so I can cover that up so the monsters don't. Do zombies still treat vines as though an area they can't go through?
Yeah, they might. I actually
I have to experiment.
Yeah, I haven't tried that.
Because I do know that a lot of monsters can't effectively see you through them, so you see, oh no, there's a skeleton archer over there. I'm not going to go over that way. Or there's a creeper there, I can just watch him. He can't see me. Haha, I'm hidden.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it stops the new AI for the zombies, so I will have to check that out then. Which leads me to my final problem in Minecraft. I'm not liking how the walls are looking outside my city. They're too plain. They're not really doing much. They're just really tall at this point.
How many blocks tall are they?
Let's see, about 12 or so.
Okay, that's a fair size for a wall. But yeah, it would get very monotonous, I would imagine. Are they cobblestone?
No, they are worked brick.
Okay.
I want them to look like a real professional thing.
Yeah.
The cobblestone is being used for the bottom layer of my city sidewalk sort of thing.
Yeah.
Although I was thinking about getting some yellow sheep and some black sheep, and then just turning their wool into carpet, and then just creating like a yellow stripe in the center, and making it look like a real road system going on.
Oh yeah.
Which admittedly, I might come back to for an idea later on. But right now that's just like a on the back burner mental idea.
Right.
But yeah, the walls are just too straight, and there's not enough ornamentation. I'm thinking maybe putting some windows in. A lot of the buildings on the outside wind up, of the circumference of my city being up against there, so some windows conceivably would look nice, I suppose.
Yeah.
What's the situation for monsters looking through on those little tiny windows you can make using stairs? Do you know?
Oh, well, I think technically a skeleton can shoot through them, but it's
pretty narrow way.
Yeah, it's a low chance of getting through.
And there's no peasants going into any of my outer rooms, so.
Yeah, and those tiny, I don't remember if baby zombies can get through.
I know they can get through a 1x1 block, but I don't know if they can get through what would effectively be 3 1/4 blocks.
Yeah, I don't think they would be able to. That would be too small.
So I might just do that for my first story then, and put in some windows for the second story and above.
Yeah, they would look kind of like how castles have like arrow slits in them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the things I was also thinking about is working with some slabs and those bits to make for some interesting patterns, but maybe a little bit more work than I want to do with. So instead, I'll just make them tiny little window arrow, just air holes sort of thing, and then on the higher ups, levels, actual glass. Because classiness, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Also, I'm slowly mining away a neighboring sand hill. Just to make sure I've got enough glass for everyone to walk on for my second story.
Yeah.
Which I gotta say is looking really classy and boss right now.
So you have some glass up there already?
I have enough glass to just about finish covering all the districts. So, it's looking pretty groovy. And I've got a nice little fence to make sure nobody goes wandering off the side.
Do you have color coding plans for, the same colors as the bottom?
Each of the buildings is color-coded, but I'm not doing anything with, tinting the glass any which way.
Okay.
That would be too much work even for me. Plus, right now, it honestly looks pretty cool. Like, when you get the right angle and you look down the street and you see the layer after layer of the glass with its own little reflection thing just kind of hit a nice little repeating pattern.
That's fun, yeah.
It's its own little subtle beauty, I find. And I don't know how it's going to wind up looking when I do it, because the way I originally had it planned, there's going to be 9 levels on this darn city, eh? They get progressively smaller the higher up you go, so they get classier sort of thing, effectively. Mm-hmm. I may still wind up doing that just for the look of it, but I don't know. But
you could have some abandoned levels, maybe. That might actually alleviate.
Well, that's the thing is right now I've only got 2 peasants locked up in a room up on my second level. I was doing some testing on how the breeding works and does it still qualify as the same city or different, and that's how I started figuring out, no, it's all one city. I've got 2 white cloaks, what are they, the scientists then?
I think librarians, maybe?
Yeah. I've got 2 of the librarians locked up in a room, and they're not doing anything romantic with each other. Meanwhile, there's breeding going on down at the lower level. And I know I can just look down through the sidewalk and see them as the hearts are popping up down there. The view is very interesting. I may have to start taking some photos and putting them up just to show.
Yeah, well, I want to see those. Of course, yeah, I'll look at it.
Next time we're over at my place, sort of thing, I'll take you through all my fields and all that too. I've done some nice stuff with gathering plants together and flowers.
Cool.
So yeah, but that was been my week. Frustrations and thoughts of digital homicide. Do golems count as digital homicide if even within the game they're an artificial construct?
Well,
is there a term for destroying an artificial being? Because there probably should be.
Well, destruction of property, because they presumably belong to somebody.
But it would be an intelligent-based thing, even though it's not like a qualifying as a person. And I think there should be a term for that. If you've got
like
regicide...
Roboticide?
Yeah, robocide.
Robocide.
Similicide from simulacrum.
Okay, yeah. Or golemicide.
Golicide. Life on the streets. There should be a term. I might have to look that up. I bet you someone's come up with a concept for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe Isaac Asimov.
He was working with ideas. I don't know if he was working with new terminology, though.
Yeah, well, there might be something like that. I haven't read Isaac Asimov.
Asimovicide?
So.
Just as a reference to him and his artificial...
well, then
laws?
It sounds like you're killing him.
Well, you can only really do that once, so it's not really worth coming up with a single term just for that.
Yeah. Well, unless it's, anybody named Asimov.
Unless you want to get a bunch of people with telling short stories about how they kill Isaac Asimov through whatever method, in which case you get a really warped little series of novels. So there's an idea if you're out of short story writing this week. Write how you'd kill Isaac Asimov were he alive today. Or with a time machine. Okay,
that was awkward, weird.
Well, you got to come up with a writing idea somehow. We usually come up with one about a week, and in lieu of anything else, there we go. Sorry, Mr. Asimov, from beyond the grave. I didn't mean to tell people to write about how to kill you, but it's out in the open now.
Well, I will say, if people have fan fiction they want to write about killing me, go right ahead. I would be happy to read it. And send it to thesimulationist@gmail.com.
But you do want to make the difference between telling the story and putting in too many personal details, so that Josh doesn't actually think they know enough, they could do so.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be kind of funny, but no. Yeah.
So you want to sleep at night, man. You don't need to sort of stuff weighing on your brain. You're going to sleep, and all of a sudden you hear a creak. It's like, is that him coming to make the story become truth?
It's even better, yeah.
Da-da-da-dun.
thesimulationist@gmail.com. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/thesimulationist, and on YouTube, and we're on iTunes if you haven't already found us there. And leave comments on the blog and ratings and all of those nice things. And follow me on Twitter, or just you don't have to follow me, but you can
hunt him down on Twitter. Make it a digital hunt.
You can tweet at me at Spaceboot1 is my Spaceboot numeral 1.
Make your first tweet to him like Snicker Snack, I got you. That was the cyber hunt.
Yeah.
So there you go. Get everything appeased.
Yes. So do you want to move on to?
Yes. This week, you alluded to some trains, and I was actually doing some reading on trains myself. Well, because I was thinking about Minecraft. It's like, wow, that's really unrealistic how they make a 90-degree turn. Any real system would completely go off the rails on that. So I was looking at how they managed to stay on the rails in real life when you have a boxcar on a turning surface. And as I was reading that up, I started learning the history of locomotives, because I like learning. And I think locomotives are worth it. They're awesome. I mean, they incorporate all the fun stuff of machinery. They, it's like, oh boy, look at that. But without the negative connotations of tanks. It's like, oh yeah, look at that. It's built for war and death. And so it's like, oh, trains are technically better in this regard.
Yeah, that's true. Trains are you don't have to feel guilty about loving trains. Although nowadays, trains are always derailing and spilling junk all over.
Well, that's because they're running just more trains in general, sort of thing.
That doesn't mean trains aren't
governmental
awesome,
deregulation. That's a problem going on beyond. That's a meta situation with the trains.
Yeah, but the trains are still awesome.
Oh yes, I think everyone should pay to learn this stuff, but you don't have to because you can get it for free on Wikipedia.
Okay.
But yes, I was learning up on the Wikipedia the history, and it occurred to me, it's like, oh, they had some effective rut tracks. This is kind of like the rail system, but in reverse. Instead of sticking up, it goes down in. Make sure everything stays on. And they had that hundreds of years, BC. They had some of the Greeks had that sort of system.
The ancient Greeks had it.
Yeah, they didn't use like a steam engine, of course. They used people and horses and dogs and whatever else they could get to pull the stuff uphill. But they were doing some interesting work with cogs to really help keep it from slipping, which is a problem that current trains have. Too much of an incline, and they don't get enough grip, and they start slipping, especially when the weather's not good.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And so then the entire train starts going backwards, and that's no longer a good, safe situation for anyone anywhere nearby.
Yeah.
So they have to be very careful about that. But the Greeks had a nice little cog-based system, in some of the stuff to help out with that. And I was looking, I was like, oh, that's like this really big one that they built was like 600 BC. Oh, my goodness. And then it occurs to me, but the steam engine itself, its prototype, goes back well over 2,500 years into our history. It was usually just a kid's toy. Imagine, if you will, an egg with some curved spouts coming out from the top of it. You put water in near the top, you put a coal in near the bottom, close it up, and you hang it from a string. The coal heats the water goes out the little jets, and it goes around in a circle, and kids get amused by this because they didn't have Game Boys and that sort of thing. So yeah, hooray! But no one looked at that and said, you know what? That's doing work. Can we put this to more constructive use than entertaining rich children? And so no one decided to put these two together and come up with the steam locomotive. But they could have as of 600 BC.
Yeah.
So conceive this into your mind, Josh.
Okay.
When Jesus was a living person, and not just, when he came back apparently, but when he was just like the regular, Son of God, I haven't been crucified yet or anything. Sort of
just a dude wandering around Judea.
Yeah, just chilling out with his 12 friends, He could have been riding the rails.
Oh, okay.
He didn't necessarily need to walk the boat thing where he's walking on the water makes for a good story and all that. Jesus walking on the top of a train sets a bad precedent for young kids everywhere. But yeah, instead of just being Jesus wandering around Judea, he could have traveled the entire Roman Empire riding the rails. And that would have been a pretty awesome story. But if you were to write that story right now, people would accuse you of using they have a term for it, Schismo-tech, where the technology level's weirdly imbalanced, like one thing's advanced and other stuff is primitive.
Yeah.
But it's not Schismo-tech because everything was there. Nobody just put it all together as one cohesive unit. And the Romans, if you had been able to show them a steam engine, they would have said, we can transport troops, we can transport food, we are putting this all over the empire. And so all around the Mediterranean, you could have had, by the time Jesus was there, a very well-established railroad system. And that blows my mind, Josh. Particularly because people wind up, saying the technology, this area is way too advanced for the story you're telling. Why isn't everything more advanced? It's because people haven't put all the pieces together to make that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that got me thinking then, because what happens when you get railroads, in civilization? Apparently, you get an industrial revolution. You get a lot of goods transported wherever the heck you want, and then eventually people, because it's people are a kind of cargo, and they're lighter, so we don't have to spend as much effort putting stuff, to get them from A to B. So we can have all sorts of people wherever we want them at a very short notice.
Right, and you can have armies wherever in Europe that you like.
You could have armies in Europe, or you could have the army, corps sort of thing, of engineers going wherever you want. And so you could really, just put out civilization wherever you want. As soon as you get a railway system there, bam, civilization, buildings, dams, this going on, that going on. You've got lakes forming. You're doing this here. You have mastered the wild.
Yeah, I think this is the story of our civilization.
Well, it's the story of humanity as a whole, really. I mean, you go back to the Egyptians. They really weren't able to make a big civilization, last a while until they got dams blocking the river so they could irrigate properly. It's all about what you can do with nature and how to properly regulate it. Whether or not you think that's a good or bad thing, maybe a topic for another day. But apparently, they say, you get trains, you get an industrial revolution. And so you could wind up telling a nice, interesting story about Jesus riding the rails and his thoughts of an industrial revolution going throughout the ancient Roman Empire. And that's a completely legitimate story, provided you had one person put all the pieces together.
Okay, so yes, I won't say it's entirely legitimate, but I will say it's awesome, and that's probably my one criteria, is that, just
I think it's believably awesome, because all the pieces were there. All you needed was someone with the mind of like a Leonardo da Vinci set far back enough to realize, I can do something with that.
Well, no,
I can make that happen.
I'm glad you brought up Leonardo da Vinci, because the thing about Leonardo da Vinci is he had a lot of really great ideas.
Because he was able to look at something and he was able to think, I think this generates a little lift. I can make a kite, or I can put these two wedges against each other, and bam, he made scissors.
Yeah, but the problem with Leonardo da Vinci is that a lot of his stuff was before his time, and they couldn't make it. Like, yes, he designed it, and yes, he came up with great ideas that ultimately, in the far future, had great applications like tanks and hang gliders, and I can't remember all the other things that he invented.
He did a lot of awesome stuff. It was the mind of a true artist, someone that finds a functional beauty in there, even if the technology capacity of the day does not allow it to actually exist.
Yeah. And so there's a difference between having the idea and the possibility of the concept, and then actually having the material and the logistics to actually make it happen.
Okay, I will grant you with the ancient Greeks, they weren't exactly the best iron refiners out there, so they wouldn't have been able to get the hardcore boiler areas to really push that steam and make the steam engine work. But they did have enough know-how to be able to make boilers and systems going on. They did have their own hot and cold running water sort of stuff going on. So they could have made something work, even if it wasn't up to our, what we perceive as, locomotive standards.
And I imagine they could have, theoretically, they could have built a railway between one city and another. Of course, the problem...
They did. They were able to effectively... they didn't have the locomotive, but, they were pushing it and pulling it with people. But they were doing that between cities. And that's been going not just with the Greeks, but with a lot of areas throughout history.
But on the other hand, it's my feeling that a trans-European network requires something like, the Roman Empire before you can even begin to build those roads, because there's all those barbarians attacking and making off with all that metal that you're bringing in, and making bracelets and crowns out of it for their wives.
Freaking bracelets! I could have put in a road to Romania.
And I think, I'm not sure how, I'm no European historical guy, I haven't even read the Wikipedia, but I think a lot of the rail networks in Europe are built on top of old Roman roads, because the Romans actually did create a vast network of roads.
Very, very straight roads, too. I mean, you can, if you're living in the United Kingdom, you can thank the Romans for any straight road you see. If it's not straight, it wasn't Roman. But they did some very nice work on that. I just want to make sure everyone knows.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
credit where it's due.
So in a lot of ways, the Romans kind of had to do what they did before later on Europe could, advance to say, okay, now we're putting tracks on all these roads, or now we're actually...
asphalt! Make sure it's all nice and usable.
But then, yes, it's also true that in history, you have things like Dark Ages and wars and things like that, and barbarian attacks. And so, it's hard to build up your entire continental network when stuff like that is happening.
But that's the thing, is with something like a faster mode of transport, and something more reliable than boats, because, sometimes you can't go out on a boat because it's a stormy day. But that doesn't stop you from hitting the rails, unless it's a really stormy day.
Yeah, that's true. So, it's like the chicken or the egg. You kind of have to have...
They would advance each other in tandem, sort of thing, and they work best together. I mean, you don't want to go all the way around the Mediterranean when you can just take a boat from, we'll say, Rome to Carthage, sort of thing. And I know Rome doesn't have a port. You go offside. It's very narrow peninsula. It's not too far. So you just go offside on the Rome.
Is Rome on a river of some kind?
Yeah, but I think you need a different boat to go through the Mediterranean. So you could do a boat hopping sort of thing to go from Rome to Carthage, sort of thing, a lot quicker than a train could take you today. So the two of them would work very well together as a nice interlaced network of travel. But when you get the ability to move faster in these ways, you transmit the ideas faster. You transmit the ideas faster, you build up the infrastructure again faster.
Well,
provided someone's listening to the ideas. The Romans weren't 100% the best for that. They did listen to the Greeks, though. They said, hey, these nerds know what they're doing. we'll take their stuff and make it work for us.
Well, and this was another of the wonderful things about the Roman Empire was that in fact people in Ireland were speaking Latin, and people in England, there were Latin speaking people, whereas sort of before the Roman Empire it was
everybody speaking their own little tiny language in this own localized region, and there's 100 different languages everywhere, and no one knows what the heck anyone else is saying. But you put the railroad through, and all of a sudden there's much more of a reason to speak Latin, not just because they got Latin-speaking people, it's because, dude, you could take the road right down there. Sure, I mean, as soon as you get onto the mainland sort of thing, you're an Irish person, but if you know Latin, you can speak with the locals wherever you go along that network system. And that makes it, if you can, instead of taking like a year or two travel to go to Rome and come back, if you could do that in the span of like a single year, you make it back before like the winter winds start hitting you. Well, that's a very nice quick trip, and you can do a lot more that way. So it facilitates people and ideas much better that way. And that's apparently one of the other reasons you get an industrial revolution. There's something to be said about switching to coffee as opposed to beer, but I don't know about that, and we'll put that aside for another day. But yeah, when we apply this into fictional settings, I always find it interesting how they mark technological progress as in this stage, like Bronze Age, Metal Age, and I get those.
Yeah,
like what you can work for the top end of your metals, and then it goes to ideas. So you get your Dark Age, you get your Renaissance, and then you get your Industrial Revolution. But I cannot honestly see an Industrial Revolution happening in any setting that has magic. At least not in as we have experienced it within reality.
Okay. Because
magic is the ultimate free energy source. It's so cheap. All you need to do is cast a spell every dang day. You get free energy. You don't have to eat a lot of food to make up for all the heat you expelled with that fireball you cast yesterday.
Well, fireball is a 3rd level spell, and the 3rd level spell you have to be 7th level caster. 5th level caster. Yeah. And how many of those are there?
I'm just using that as an example. You could utilize the Flaming Sphere at for a 2nd level spell, so you only need to be 3rd level. And then there's some very small elemental spells you can find in splat books at 1st level. Burning Hands also works as a nice example on that.
But I suppose, like, if you ramped up, you create a wizard's university that's very intensive and like puts out a lot of students. I suppose you could have 5th level wizards just all over the place.
Well, that's the weird thing about it, is depending on which edition you're using, you can, like in 2nd edition, studying and all that stuff, and gets you experience. Magic item creation gets you experience. So as soon as you can learn to create a magic item, you are kind of self-propelling yourself up the levels, which is kind of why they had to change it at 3rd level. As soon as a wizard learns how to make potions, why adventure? Just make scrolls, and until you ding another level and start making better stuff. So I can see why they changed that. But magic is effectively a free energy source. Just look at some of the 1st level spells that you can do that generate more energy than you should be able to put out just on a biological basis. Mm-hmm. And so that's a lot easier to come by in most settings. The magic rare ones are an exception, of course. But it is a lot easier to get somebody to cast a specialized energy-producing spell than it is to chop down wood, burn it into charcoal, then utilize the charcoal as a power source of its own. It's a lot more portable than a windmill or a water mill. So you could have some sort of low-end momentum spell that effectively allows anywhere, top side, underside, to make a grist mill. So the dwarves can finally have their subterranean grains get properly ground, and they can have wonderful bread like the surface-dwelling folk.
Okay.
And so I don't see an industrial revolution happening in the same way, or at least not anywhere near. I would see it much more of an arcane revolution. As soon as you get functional magic that helps you do regular everyday work, I see magic all of a sudden. It's like, oh, superstitious, I gotta burn you at the stake too. Can I make an appointment? Can you come on over and work the small grist mill, on the back of your portable wagon, so I don't have to leave my farm, and I can have you grind it up for me?
Well, I don't really see it the same way, because I see like sort of almost like alchemy transitioning into respectable actual. So like the way I see it is that, sure, the magicians, the wizards, the people who cast spells, like, they sort of figure out, what's behind reality and things like that. So they're pretty much analogous to what we think of as chemists and the first electrical engineers. And
it works a little different, though, when you wind up, like, saying, okay, I need something with sympathetic resolution, so if I want to create, something that creates a big blast, I have to have something that imitates the blast. I need swamp gas. So that has much more of a natural intuitiveness rather than a scientific progress to it. But it's as close as you can expect for some of the weird fantasy law settings, I suppose.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way we tell stories about magic is we always leave out details because magic doesn't actually work.
Although, mind you, the first edition stuff, there was a lot more detail in what's required for, like, just the stuff required to pen a magic spell onto paper. Mm-hmm. Gygax actually had some notes as to what it entailed, sort of thing, and it wound up looking like if you were, some ignorant person looking at it, go, they're actually casting magical spells. And that's why some ignorant people actually exclaim that, and that caused a lot of the problem back in the late 70s, early 80s about, D&D.
Well, to me, what magic feels like to me is, I'll use the example of the cargo cults, and that, like, magic is like you're sort of crafting things that look like they ought to work, sort of they sort of almost resemble science, but it's more a feely, like, by the gut sort of feeling. So it's
like the Warhammer orc tech. If you open up like an orc blaster, there's no real working pieces. There's a bunch of wires and sometimes sticks and rocks in there, and they don't really work. But in the hands of an orc who thinks, this is a blaster and it works, he actually makes it work.
Yeah, exactly. So so you're living in that world of what if the machinery didn't actually all have to fit together. Yeah, I think that's a good. Yeah.
That is actually a very nice way of looking at it, where you don't have to come up with quite so hard rules. But that does almost beg the question, what happens when somebody actually does hook everything up, and then you have, what is working technology and a magic power source? And that gets a little scary. Maybe we'll come back to that one in a bit, though. But
okay.
So do you think there's, like, any legitimate reason why they always start stating when it's, like, technological levels, they wind up with an industrial revolution and not like revolution of progress, whereby magic, instead of becoming like I blast you and kill you, it becomes I generate lots of reliable power source energy. I make motion happen so that we can get places quicker.
Well, isn't Eberron like that?
Eberron is very close to that, and that's why I've always at least respected the setting. Some things I don't dig too much. Some things, don't work with my preferred style. Mm-hmm. But I always respect it because it's beginning that sort of arcane revolution as opposed to the technological, industrial style.
Well, I've seen articles. I can't even remember, so I won't be able to cite one actually. But I have seen people say in the past, like I've read it. That it's a bad idea to mix sort of the magical and the magic and the technology. Are you familiar with that?
I do recall some incompatibility issues where as one gets better, the other gets weaker, sort of thing. So on a high magic stuff where people are casting spells, you're lucky if you can get gunpowder to work properly. Whereas if magic wanes out, then all of a sudden, hey, we can, get this to work and steam engines work, and then, hey, we're going where we want, and muskets and rifles and all sorts of fun things.
Yeah. And so I think it's like one of those campaign don'ts, like, that don't ever do this if you're building a campaign world, is that sort of magic as technology. And sort of Eberron sort of was like, okay, well, let's break that rule a little bit. And
I do like their electric trains and all that. I do like their lower level stuff, because apparently, you hit 6th level there and you are a big bad kind of person. You can really boss people around. Mm-hmm. Cool, because you're supposed to be the hero sort of thing, so why are all these high level nobodies doing stuff, right? And I like that option as a reasoning too. But how about as homologs for each other? Like, you see the processes that led to the Industrial Revolution, and then you mimic it with, like arcane magics. Would that be more apropos? Where instead of, all of a sudden you create like, like the electric train thing that they've got going on, or your flying airships powered by elementals. You see the processes of it working for how you increase life and stability and all that, and work it through what's already existent within Magic.
Well, okay, so here's why here's a problem.
Okay.
A problem is that with technology, sort of, you advance technology, you become sort of better at doing a thing. You become more efficient. You can do more of it. So you sort of level up in that way, or you can look at another way. You level the technology down. The cost comes down, and more people can do it. More people have access to it. Now, if you were to have an Arcane Revolution, my thought would be that a similar thing, like sort of realistically looking at the world, a similar thing would happen to spells, like magic spells, is that the cost would come down. 9th level spells would gradually become cheaper, and more people would have access to them, and so that's what the Arcane Revolution would entail.
What if it just works like the wizards stop being so exclusive? Like they create items that don't require you to have the spell in your spell list in order to use an item that has it. Because I do know with stuff like wands in D&D, you can't cast a wand without having a spell in your spell list. You have no spell list, you can't use the wand.
Yeah.
With the exception of use magic device as a thing. That's another like a little caveat emptor sort of thing there.
I think and that would be a side result of the fact that magic is becoming like people are getting more skilled at it, and they're learning better ways to approach magic, and they're bringing it down to the level of more wizards who can then distribute it to more of the muggles. So. Sure, yeah, and then
so the spells still remain there. So like you wouldn't just have anybody being able to walk, and it's like, I'll take a wish spell, please, and they'll go, well, that's 25 gold, and they're like, all right. So the spells still remain as rare, provided you can get a person up to the level they can cast the stuff. But the power is still the power. It's just that its availability outside of spellcasting becomes more available for the common man sort of thing. So instead of like a wand of Move Earth, you wind up having, we'll say, gloves, that wind up allowing you to shape and move it like, through, like you close one eye and all of a sudden you're moving it like through your own mental perspectives.
Yeah, but at the same time, economically, those gloves come down in price every year. Like, there's a new model that's, a little bit more expensive. But
well, so that's a little hard to work with, though, because in D&D to make the magic item, it requires so much experience points.
Yeah, but if you're truly having an Arcane Revolution...
It's not just in its availability, though. The revolution can be in its use.
Yeah.
In that there's suddenly deciding to use less destructive magic and use more productive magic. Yeah. They decide to have some fun with, that wall of iron spell we're able to cast? That doesn't go away after any length of time. That stuff stays there, right? And so they come out once a day, wall of iron, and then people start, carving it up, smelting it down. All of a sudden, iron becomes really cheap. The spell is still, as rare as possible, and the magic items from it don't get any cheaper. But all of a sudden, iron is like anybody can have as much of it as they darn near want. Sorry about the dwarves. I guess your iron mines are completely bupkis worthless now, but oops.
Yeah, well, but at the same the spell simply it might not become easier, but it will happen that, if you have an Arcane Revolution, and if wizards are suddenly becoming billionaires and trillionaires, or billion gold heirs.
Well, so that's the thing is you wouldn't effectively become all that rich off of creating a lot of iron, because as the supply increases, the price winds up going down. Like, everyone's got what they want. I mean, you can still sell it for a little bit, but it's not as much as it used to be worthwhile. At least until they smelt it down, build a railway, and are able to transport it even farther to places that don't have it. And then, congratulations, you're the start of a wonderful economic empire. Woe betide the king that gets in your way, buddy. You control the real strings of power.
You could still stand to profit quite a bit, even if you had free iron. Like, you still charge a small amount for it, and you'd still become quite wealthy, I think. But of course, the counter thing that happens there is when somebody's making a lot of money making free iron, other people move in. They're like, oh, I'm going to take a couple levels of wizard and see if I can.
But that's the other limiting factor in many types of situations is to get that power, you have to do stupidly dangerous things. And so I remember in 2nd edition, they said basically the numbers work out that anybody who tries to go from like 1st level to 2nd level has a 50% mortality rate. And that repeats every time you go up the level. So if you have, say, 8 people that go out to try and become, wizards, they got to go out and do stuff like, kill goblins or solve puzzles and, raid crypts or whatever, to gain enough experience to get better at it, you're going to wind up with 4 second-level wizards. 4 of them died. Apparently they should have taken a rogue with them or something. Who knows? Which means you're going to wind up with only 2 third-level wizards and then maybe only 1 fourth-level wizard. And so you get the natural attrition going on.
Yeah. So then how do you have that? Like, if you have the attrition, but you also have people, like, seeing that it's lucrative and going in. So you'll have a sort of equilibrium of, people entering the field, people leaving it. I think that's modeled by economics. That's sort of a system.
It is an interesting way that would prevent like a glut from happening in today's economy. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, we have too many economists. You're going to have to do field economics, and you got a 50% survival rate. But don't worry, once you effectively get your master's degree, I mean, that's like, it'll be like 7 out of 8 other people dead on that, and there will be jobs plenty for you at that skill point.
I mean, our society does have lethal jobs, like,
yes, but
nothing
so decisively lethal for a lot of the educated stuff, where you wind up needing a degree, which is what best closely parallels to the magic academies.
Okay.
It would be a very odd life if that's how it lived for us, wouldn't it? It's like, oh, you want to get yourself, like a PhD. Well, geez, I mean, that's like the equivalent of being able to, be an 11th level wizard. That's like, one in, a couple 100,000 at that point.
Yeah.
So that's a limiting factor. It would just be that there's maybe something more like the wizards create a magic item that allows a person to use it. So once they pass on, that magic is still available to the masses. And this gradually accumulates over time until a point where it's like every major city has this statue or something that, you make the proper invocation. And, there's a wall of iron now for anyone to wind up digging and using. And, and so it winds up being that magic reduces, in rarity, not because of the amount of wizards out there being able to cast it, but because their legacy accumulates over time. You don't have to recharge a magical item over time in most settings. Although it would be interesting to see a setting whereby, every 100 years it requires a blood sacrifice to get the experience back up there, to reuse it time and again. There's an interesting hook for a campaign setting, I believe. But yeah, what about that sort of thing then? Where it's not just the people themselves, it's the legacy they leave behind, like would be the equivalent of this person invented that. Now anyone can, come up with this invention. We'll call it the movable printing press. And all of a sudden, and so that means you don't necessarily need the Mr. Gutenberg to survive forever to keep casting his, print book spell. It's his Gutenberg press that winds up being lasting and being able to make the books cheaper and more abundant.
Well, I mean, the idea of the press is always going to be there. The individual presses will break down eventually and require repair.
Which is where things would differ from the Industrial Revolution from the Arcane Revolution. The magic items, barring magic, vampires sort of thing that wind up draining magical power out of stuff and all that sort of thing happening, they would last. And so it would be the equivalent of the magic item being like the concept, the idea, lasting forever.
Well, okay, and
this is where you have to work, you have to really start deciding where your homologs are, because the magic item doesn't represent the item itself, it represents the idea more so. Once you invent this item and let everyone know about it, that idea is pretty much out there forever, barring like whatever the heck happened to Greek fire. We still don't know what that formula was. Somebody forgot to write it down, or they did write it down, but it got burned by Greek fire. Irony.
Well, the rules that you're using, though, that you're applying to magic, I mean, they might not be that way and on a societal level, because the rules that we're talking about are sort of the rules that are designed for D&D, which is, personal use for the characters and stuff like that. So you're sort of positing, like, what if those rules were expanded? What if somebody came up with a spell that instead of telekinetically forced someone into a wall or, shook the heck out of them for so many points of damage,
It instead gave a steady, consistent push onto an object, and then all of a sudden you don't need horses on your wagon. Oh, that's kind of groovy. Congratulations, you've come up with a much more... and so you wind up with a version of the automobile that doesn't necessarily actually even need oil, so that way you avoid the whole issue of having to go out and find these resources. Because the wizard, so long as they can cast this spell, which... based on what it does, shouldn't even need to be a very high-level spell, can make things go, and then all of a sudden you've got the equivalent of like a decently rich job of being a bus driver in this case. You just happen to own your own bus. Or maybe you just rent the bus from someone and you cast the spell. In which case, you could even look into the Spelljammer setting. I don't know how much they've converted out of 2nd edition, but that one, to make a ship move through space, they effectively had... like a seat or a brain helmet, depending on the style and whatnot, where you'd effectively blow out your spells to power the ship. It gets converted to raw oomph momentum as you navigate out through that way. And so, like, having a wizard, what spells they know doesn't matter. It's the general power level. They memorize whatever spells they want. They wind up expending their spells to help get the ship to generate momentum. So you could wind up with, you could use some rules for the Spelljammer to make that work. Well, at least for item momentum. The other stuff you kind of have to decide. Like, I would love to see a nice splat book on, like, designing your own, revolution, or like, Arcane Renaissance? Yeah, I don't know. You come up with your own term.
Yeah, well...
Renaissance is kind of taken, sort of thing, and so, like, the... I don't want to keep using revolution, because then it starts losing all meaning, but, be like, the arcane apotheosis. Yes, I actually quite like that, and so just to help, separate out from the Industrial Revolution, where magic stops being about me, and it starts being about society. And I would pay some good real world monies for that.
For a setting that had that in it.
Maybe not just a setting, but a splat book.
Yeah.
Design, it's like, okay, here's some stuff. You want to have this in the setting. This is what it would require. Here's some nice little, we'll call them utility spells. And then, the fallout, what comes through, and some nice well thought out, patterns of thought as to how it all plays out once it gets introduced. So you could have, say, all the players be, like somehow apprenticed or related to the master wizard who suddenly decided, dude, locomotives. And so he comes up with a locomotive, and they wind up helping spread out, defeating like the monsters in here so that they can put in a railroad to get from A to B safely. And that seems like an interesting campaign. It's like the March of Progress campaign. And like, how would things follow through? What would be different? How would things correlate? And then you could say, like, there's a note about crime, because, that increases technically your transient population. So here's some nice side adventures. As, the train system branches outwards more, have more random encounters with pickpockets and that sort of stuff from the transient population of ne'er-do-wells as they congregate to areas where they can get away to somewhere where nobody knows them again. And that would be, I think, be a very, very interesting read. And I always dig a good read that helps follow through logical progression, because that's my mind. So I don't know if there's a big market for that, but I would like it.
Sure, yeah, and well, I mean, those are in a lot of ways they're just alternate ways of telling stories that we sort of already know with what we've experienced with the Industrial Revolution, the real world. But
you also make an argument about it being like a parallel to the Digital Revolution, because if you can have something like where you can put a book on like a dais somewhere, and then anyone else with like a magically connected dais sort of thing can open up a book, and then hey, the words like flow through, and then all of a sudden I can read this book even though it's all the way over there. You could have effectively a digital library for the entire world so long as they're connected up. Mm-hmm. And so you could have a medieval world suddenly figuring out that knowledge is very common for those who get connected up to the system. And all of a sudden, whoa, like you got a big flow of ideas there. Societal changes, people thinking new thoughts, it causes all sorts of disharmony and stuff. People want new things. This is a good idea, let's do this instead. And then revolution, like not just, technological, but I'm like down with the bourgeoisie, cut off their head sort of thing.
Yeah, and then do like some of those books get lost in the process? Or?
They could, sort of thing, and that's the thing. You could even have a nice little campaign about like, oh, this book is no longer available. What happened? Person snuck in the middle of the night under, because this is dangerous information in this book. They snuck it and they took it away, and the ruler of the land who doesn't want you to see it, he's the one who's got it now in his own private little area, forbidden books of heretical knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a very interesting thing. It's just, it's like, yes, you're the heroes trying to keep the new information flowing for everyone. And so I think that has a lot of very good storytelling potential, and I think that's very worthy of a Splat book, because that's something that would work its way into a lot of homebrew campaigns. And I am of the firm belief there's just absolute magnitudes more homebrew campaigns being played than established setting campaigns. And so I think a Splat book that acts modularly to any of that stuff works so much better than saying, oh, hey, and this works for the Eberron campaign setting, and you really kind of have to shoehorn it in to make it work for almost anything else. Yeah,
well, I don't know how many people at home, like DMs running their own campaigns, would want to incorporate magic as technology, because, as I said before, there is sort of a semi-prohibition against it. I wouldn't, not entirely, but people don't like to mix the two flavors.
But here's the thing, is prohibition works very poorly, as we've learned in real history.
Well, it's not official, it's not like outright prohibition. It's more like people are like sort of recommending not to do that. But
they want to keep their flavors separated, sort of thing.
Yeah, but for sure, like every once in a while, a campaign comes along, like Eberron, and brings them together. It's like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Actually, when you sort of break that mold, I don't know if I would want that as a permanent fixture, but sure.
It would be nice to have on your bookshelf sort of things like, I want to play something a little different from the standard, sword and sorcery fantasy. Or at least change the backdrop. What if it's sword and sorcery on the top of a train, or a flying ship sort of thing going on there? And like, oh, how do I make that work? Do I just say, okay, and then everyone's got flying ships all of a sudden? It's like, well, no, we have a nice little split book here that tells, hey, there's some nice stats for it, how they move, what's going to be required for that, and how it all works out, and how it changes things.
Okay, yeah.
All of a sudden, pirates have to steal a flying ship, and then you got flying air pirates, and all of a sudden, hey, they become really good raiders, because those town walls are useless. And so you have all sorts of interesting things going on there, and then you wind up with counter defenses, and all of a sudden somebody creates the arcane version of a cannon. There's a good use of a fireball spell. Once per round sort of thing, you just pull the lever, and out comes a fireball from the end of whatever it is that looks like a dragon's mouth. Padoom, padoom!
Yeah.
And that changes things up a lot quicker too, especially once, plot twist, goblins loot the place in the middle of the night and steal it. Now they've got the weapon. Countryside's being wreaked havoc on. There's a bunch of goblins with a magical cannon on the back of a wagon.
Well, yeah, that sounds fun.
That sounds like a good adventure campaign for a nice twist. Oh, they're just goblins with a fireball once per round. How do you approach them? Stealth, secretly? Do you going to charge them? You going to have the fighter charge them as everyone sneaks up behind them? They can only point the wagon once in one direction.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Have a decoy.
You know what? Forget the fighter. Have the wizard make like an illusion spell. That way they're wasting it. The fighter can sneak up behind them, and then he's got full hit points by the time he gets there.
Yeah.
But see, it just leads itself out to very interesting and different styled stories. And so I would like to see something like this, even though, yes, maybe it's a little taboo. Maybe I like the taboo. Maybe that's how I go.
No, you can. That's fine. You're allowed to like what you like.
Well, provided it's set up logically and that's a nice system to it.
Well,
on the other hand, maybe a chaos magic sort of thing. Then it's a chaos engine running everything in there. I don't know.
You read it up the right way. Like, there can be stories that are just illogical, and we do that all the time in gaming. We play games that don't make logical sense, but we just go with it because it's fun. So,
some of the best ones are illogical, and they're just really weird stuff, and just as long as everyone's having fun, that's the main point, of course.
Fun is the main point. I like logic in its place, too, so I like a bit of both. I like everything.
Okay, now one final question with the little bit of time we technically don't have.
Well, yeah, we have as much time as we want, theoretically. So.
But we try and keep it within some sort of finite limit here.
All right.
would you prefer, if seeing this revolution in the use of magic, like the Arcane apotheosis, would you like seeing it develop a lot more evenly, or would you like seeing like one magical school just go like ahead of all the others and have it be a little Schismo-tech that way?
Oh, yeah, probably just the one school, or one or two schools, sort of the Apple versus Windows, sort of that Coke versus Pepsi.
I very much appreciate that one. I hadn't been thinking that. Because on the one hand I was thinking like, well, you could have like necromancy be a cheap labor source. It's like, I animate skeletons, not to take over the countryside and do my bidding, but I need them to do some weaving of cloth over here. And they've got those nice little bony fingers that work so much better than our sausage fingers ourselves, so they wind up being really good at textiles.
Okay.
Provided you keep an eye on them, sort of thing. And also you've got like one guy, instead of having like a child labor, you have necrotic labor. And you have to have like undead and dead rights. It's like, hey, you're not allowed to animate the dead, without them signing away their permission and giving a proper amount of money to the family therefore.
Mm-hmm.
And which is a little weird when you think about it, but it's a perfectly legitimate use of a corpse, because, the person who used to be in there isn't using it anymore.
Yeah.
As opposed to, say, something like a transmutation spell where it works more along the traditional lines of fabrication, where, you magically have everything weave itself together like something like the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and everything's do-da-do-da-do going on like that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, mind you, the Sorcerer's Apprentice is more of an enchantment style, too. So you could wind up having a few different ways about going through it. The downside, of course, is when you go with enchantment, is you wind up with mind-controlling spells, in which case you enter an entirely different realm of the state controls your mind.
Yeah.
Maybe a nice story for another day. Fighting the system when everyone else is a potential enemy because they can't think differently. Da-da-da-da. So I do like the way, just having two schools. I like that. I'm gonna side with you on that. I was gonna think, just have everyone increase their, like a rising tide. But I like your two schools theory.
Yeah, and like sort of the real world doesn't advance, uniformly. We have a world of developed countries and undeveloped countries, and that's been going on.
The developing countries are like skipping over. Like there's some areas in Africa that never really adopted the landline-based system. They went from no telecommunications to cell phones.
Yep.
Because it's a lot more convenient when you're on the move and you don't have telephone lines up everywhere. So that one wound up being quite interesting to see from a technological perspective. So you wind up with that sort of thing in some places, like, oh, you're not the center of civilization, but, by the time it takes the new information to get to you, you get to skip up, you get to upgrade from, backwater to, there you go. Now you're up at the top with everyone else.
Yep.
And that's kind of groovy.
Yeah, and you get the whole nouveau riche phenomenon, too, with the old money not liking the new money.
Old money doesn't like anyone. Let's just admit this. They don't like the new rich. They don't like the old poor. They don't like the new poor.
They don't like the other old rich people. They don't like their own family.
Especially their own family, because the rest of their family's squandering what should be their money.
Yeah.
Old money just doesn't like.
All right, well, are we...
but if you are old money and you're listening to this and you want to prove us wrong, send us a line.
That's right. Thank you all for listening. We will be back again in another week with another podcast. So
6 days, 22 and 1/2 hours. We're on that good of a time schedule. No.
Well, close enough.
Yeah.
Let me see, what else? No, nothing else. I think we're done.
I think that's been a pretty good episode.
Okay.
Or iteration. If you think so, tell us. Let us know. If you think it was horrible,
let
us know on that too.
Okay.
We'll declare you part of the old rich if you don't like us, though. I hope you're prepared for that.
Okay, I guess I've been Josh Treleaven.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
Zenman.